My brother dared me at Christmas. I dare you to disappear for a few days and you'll see that no one will miss you. So I said, I accept your challenge, and I disappeared. But they didn't know that the money from the family account would disappear too. My name is Sam, although they always called me Violet. For as long as I can remember, I have felt like I live in someone else's shadow. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Tell me where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. Cedar Ridge looks pretty in winter if you do not look too closely. Frost on the roofs, salt on the streets, everyone waving like they are fine. I grew up learning to wave back. Debit affection. Credit obedience. That was the family spreadsheet before I could spell the word. Melissa pressed hairspray into the air like a fog machine. She liked my collar sharp and my smile polite. Jason believed in quiet as proof of character. If I was quiet, I was good. Dylan was never quiet. He did not have to be. He blew out candles while I cleared plates. He made wishes while I made sure the wish knife did not scrape the good china. It felt normal, which was the point. Every holiday, I ran numbers no one asked for. How many errands equal one real thank you? How many top honors equal one unprompted hug? I kept thinking there must be a conversion rate I had not learned yet. Debit A's on report cards. Credit a pat on the shoulder that landed like an automated message. I told myself, love is patient. I confused patient with forever. When Melissa said, we should have a family account, it sounded reasonable. Emergencies happen. Life surprises you. She smiled like a person who had made a practical decision. My junior accountant brain saluted. Set up deposits. Automate the basics. Keep the peace. I told the bank manager it was for all of us. I knew even then most of the funds would be mine. I hoped the math would turn into warmth anyway. Sometimes we bargain with the universe and call it being mature. The hallway in our house always smelled like burnt toast and nail polish remover. Jason left at dawn and came home with tired hands. He liked to say, we gave you a roof. It is not nothing. He was right. It is not nothing, but it is not the same thing as love. Try telling a hungry stomach that a roof is dinner. Dylan had a tripod before he had a plan. He practiced his smirk in the reflection of the TV when it was off. He practiced shoutouts to subscribers he did not have. He called me sis when he needed things to look wholesome on camera. The rest of the time he called me by my full name like a teacher about to assign blame. He had charisma the way a bonfire has heat. Stand too close and your eyebrows learn about consequences. I worked and deposited and told myself it was fine. Rent due, I covered it. Groceries thin. I filled the cart and pretended not to see the $18 jar of face serum sneaking onto the belt. The family account balance went up when I said no to a new coat for myself, down when Dylan needed a ring light to elevate production. Debit boundaries ignored. Credit piece purchased temporarily at church potlucks. People called us a strong family. We looked synchronized because I learned the choreography. Smile when Melissa brags about Dylan getting an internship. He quit 2 weeks later. Laugh when Jason jokes that I was born with a calculator in my hand. Nod when relatives say, she is so dependable, while their eyes slide back to Dylan's stories. I clapped for him. I memorized the beats. I was the drum no one saw, keeping time. I remember the day the venue manager slid the contract across the table. A refurbished brewery with string lights and exposed brick. The kind of place where photographs make everyone look richer and happier than they are. The invoice was $9,000. I did not blink. I justified every line item because I wanted Christmas to feel like a truce, because I kept thinking if I made it perfect, I would finally get to sit inside the circle instead of orbiting it. Debit savings. Credit hope again. On the way home, I watched my breath make little clouds in front of me. The sky was the pale blue of a bruise fading. I told myself, this is the last big spend. After this, something will shift. After this, Melissa will touch my cheek and mean it. Jason will lift his eyes and really see me. Dylan will thank me without turning it into a performance. I am good at forecasts. I am terrible at miracles. Back at the house, Dylan had his camera propped on a stack of cookbooks. He wanted to stream a test. I reached past the lens to grab the grocery list. He caught my wrist and grinned into the glass. Look at us, he said. Family goals. Then he let go like I was a prop he was done with. Credit none posted. The lights we strung outside buzzed soft and steady, like a lie told kindly. I filed the venue receipt in a bright folder labeled holiday because I wanted the word to mean something gentle. The family account pinged with my transfer. A clean number that could have been a down payment somewhere else. I stood in the kitchen and tasted metal where my tongue met the back of my teeth. The oven ticked as it cooled somewhere distant. A train crossed the river and blew a long low note. I wanted to believe it sounded like a beginning. Debit $9,000 for a room full of warmth. Credit a promise I kept to people who never signed anything. I stamped the invoice in my mind with a single word, paid. And for the first time, a thin thread of doubt slid through the ledger and refused to be erased. I watched the laughter echo off the brewery walls like applause for a play I did not audition for. The Christmas toast was Dylan's idea. He grabbed the mic, drunk, all confidence. He said, "I dare you to disappear for a few days, Violet. You'll see, no one will even notice." Everyone laughed. Even Melissa tried to hide her smile behind a napkin. Jason raised his glass like it was a joke he was in on. And in that moment, I realized I had spent 27 years buying tickets to a show where I was never cast. So I smiled, quiet, small, the kind that shuts down conversation. I said, "I accept your challenge." They thought I was being dramatic. Dylan clinked my glass like it was all fun and games. But in my head, I was already moving numbers. That night, while the party still pulsed through the hall, I made the first transfer. $18,500, my deposits, every paycheck, every bonus, every cent I'd saved to keep our lights on. Gone from the family account, back where it belonged. Then I opened my laptop. Canceled auto payments, $2,100 rent, $380 utilities, $38.99 for the streaming bundle Dylan used to host his movie nights. Each click was a breath. Each confirmation email felt like air returning to lungs I hadn't realized were collapsing. I froze the shared debit card, the one Dylan used for content investments. My bank app asked if I was sure. For the first time in my life, I was. By morning, I was a ghost with perfect credit. Dylan texted at noon, "Wi-Fi is down. Fix it. I have a stream tonight." I wrote back, "No. Just that." 2 letters. The size of a revolution. He called. "You can't just cut everyone off. It's Christmas." "I'm not cutting you off," I said. "I'm logging out." I didn't speak after that. I watched snow fall through my office window and thought about how silence can be louder than shouting. That night, I opened my journal, the one that used to hold grocery lists and reminder notes, and wrote 3 sentences. Financial abuse, not family duty, when you're expected to give more than they ever return. When guilt is the currency that keeps the lights on. It hit me then, I had been paying for access to love that was never in stock. I had mistaken control for care, obligation for affection. And every time I said yes, I handed them another receipt with my worth itemized at the bottom. Duty without reciprocity is debt without consent. I read that line over and over until it didn't sound poetic anymore. It sounded practical, like a fact I should have known all along. The next day, Melissa called. "Honey, we're thinking of buying matching sweaters for the family photo. Could you order them? You're so good at that stuff." I almost laughed, not cruelly, just in disbelief at how deep the script ran. "No," I said again. She paused. "No? That's right. No. I'm done paying for belonging." I could feel her confusion turn into irritation through the phone, but I didn't explain. For once, I didn't owe her an itemized justification. I turned off my ringer, made myself tea, sat in the dark with the glow of my bank app on my screen. A quiet kind of freedom written in numbers. The ledger was clean, the balance zeroed. For the first time in years, I wasn't in overdraft with myself. Tomorrow, I'd pack. I already knew where I'd go, a small studio over a bookstore downtown. Rent paid by me. For me. No shared accounts, no guilt transactions. That night, I dreamed in silence. No family voices, no noise, just the click of a keyboard and the steady beat of my own pulse counting out a new kind of math. Debit my freedom. Credit my peace. The studio above the bookstore smelled like paper and dust, and the kind of quiet that doesn't ask for anything. White walls, one lamp, a mattress on the floor. It was nothing fancy, but it was mine. For once, everything inside a room belonged to me. Even the silence downstairs. The bookstore owner turned pages in slow rhythm. Every flip sounded like breathing. I started unpacking and made 3 piles on the floor: keep, donate, return to sender. A pair of Melissa's earrings I'd borrowed years ago, return. A sweater Dylan forgot to pay me back for, donate. My old accounting textbooks, keep. Sorting felt holy. Every item was a small confession. I kept a notebook open on the floor beside me. The ledger lived there now. I started listing things the way I used to track expenses, but instead of numbers, I wrote memories. Groceries for the house when I was 19. Car insurance top-up for Jason when he was short 1 month. Holiday flights so they could visit relatives I wasn't invited to. Dylan's wardrobe splurge, $1, $2.54, brand alignment. Each line tightened something in my chest and then released it. A decade of quiet bleeding finally named. My phone buzzed. The first message was from Melissa. You didn't check in. Everything okay? I let it sit unread. An hour later, the water bill came in. I thought you were handling that. Then Jason, roof and food, Violet. We raised you. You can't just walk away when things get tough. And Dylan, always Dylan, you changed the passwords, didn't you? Wow. Real mature. You ruined my upload schedule. For messages, all different voices. Same sentence underneath, come back. Resume function. I set the phone face down. The screen kept lighting up like they were trying to force daylight into a place that didn't want it. I whispered to no one, you wanted me to disappear. I'm just finishing the job. It was strange how quiet power feels. Not fireworks, not applause, just a steady heartbeat that doesn't skip anymore. I made tea on the tiny stove. The kettle wheezed like an old man clearing his throat. I smiled, small and private, while it steeped. I opened my laptop and checked the family account one last time. 0. Every automatic payment I canceled had finally stopped. The pattern was broken. I pinned a sticky note above my mattress in thick black marker. I wrote, balance pending. That was the truth. I wasn't healed yet. I wasn't even happy. But I was pending. And pending meant progress. That night, I dreamt of the old house. The hallways smelled like burnt toast again. But this time, I walked through without cleaning the pan. Melissa called from somewhere, but her voice was faint. Jason sat at the table, counting bills that wouldn't add up. Dylan's ring light flickered, dim, useless. When I woke up, sunlight spilled across the white wall. The bookstore sign buzzed to life downstairs. I brewed fresh tea and watched steam curl upward like an answer. Inside me something unclenched. For years, I thought strength was endurance. That if I could keep carrying everyone, it meant I was good. Turns out strength is putting them down and walking away without a receipt. I opened my notebook again, drew a straight line beneath the last entry, and wrote one sentence. I am no longer the family accountant. The ink bled a little on the page. It looked alive. Outside, someone turned the store sign from closed to open. I took that as a sign too. The first week was quiet. So quiet it felt almost wrong. No calls about missing payments. No texts asking for favors. Just the sound of my own breathing in a room that didn't need explaining. Then, right on cue, the phone began to vibrate again. Dylan first. Always Dylan. Hey, Netflix isn't working. Fix it. I've got people over. I stared at the screen, let it ring out, and smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your mouth, just your bones. He called again. You're being childish. Pay the bill, Violet. It's family stuff. I typed no, then hit send. The silence after was delicious. I didn't know silence could taste like honey. 2 hours later, Melissa texted, groceries are low. Can you send something to the account? It's embarrassing going to the store with no balance. I stared at her words. At the word embarrassing, like irony spelled itself out. Maybe Dylan can pick up groceries, I replied. Her response came instantly. Don't be cruel. He's going through a rough patch. A rough patch. That phrase had been our family anthem since he was 12. Every time he failed, the patch grew softer around him while the ground under me kept turning to stone. I didn't answer. The calls came faster, like waves hitting a wall that wouldn't break. Jason chimed in too. We gave you a home. You owe us the decency to talk this out. I almost laughed. Oh, there it was again, their favorite verb. I set the phone down and opened my ledger notebook. New page. New heading. Requests denied. Netflix declined. Groceries declined. Rent declined. Utilities declined. Each refusal was a small heartbeat of control returning. Then I added a note in red pen. Past investment is not equal to future obligation. That line came from an article I bookmarked months ago but never dared to believe. Something about the sunk cost fallacy. It hit different now. Just because I've paid in for years doesn't mean I have to keep paying to justify the loss. Love shouldn't be a stock I have to keep funding out of guilt. I said the words out loud just to hear how they sounded. My voice didn't shake. Melissa called again that night, her tone dripping with practiced worry. We're family, Violet. You can't just turn your back when things get hard. Family share. I took a slow breath. Share, I said quietly. Show me one thing you've shared that didn't have my name on the receipt. She fell silent, then sighed like she was the victim. You're breaking this family apart. No, I said. I'm just no longer paying to keep it together. The next day, Dylan posted some passive-aggressive story about fake people who forget where they came from. His chat laughed. Then the Wi-Fi cut off midstream. I didn't watch, but a friend texted me a screenshot, his face frozen in confusion, comments lighting up with jokes about karma. That's when I knew the tide was turning. I wasn't vengeful. I wasn't celebrating. I was auditing for every year I had overpaid in patience. I was collecting interest in peace. The landlord called them soon after. The family account was empty and rent was overdue. Melissa's text switched from guilt to panic in seconds. You can't just leave us like this. We'll be evicted. I typed my answer carefully, like a signature at the end of a contract. You told me once that I should be grateful for the roof over my head. Now you can find out what gratitude feels like without me funding it. I pressed send, put my phone face down, exhaled. Then in my ledger beneath requests denied, I drew a single line and wrote, debt forgiven, relationship closed. It wasn't rage anymore. It was accounting. Cold. Clean. Correct. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and whispered to the darkness. When the numbers stop adding up, it's time to stop paying. Outside, snow began to fall again, slow, deliberate, and final. The call came 3 days later. Jason. His number still popped up as Dad on my phone, though the title felt like an overdraft I'd never meant to open. His voice wasn't calm this time. It was brittle like paper held too close to a flame. Violet, how could you do this? The landlord says he's putting a 5-day notice on the door. You emptied the account. What are we supposed to do? I let him talk. The panic poured out in staccato bursts, words I'd heard before, just rearranged. When he stopped to breathe, I said quietly, what I did was take back what's mine. You spent it pretending I was part of a family that only called me when the bills were due. You're ungrateful, he snapped. We gave you everything. A roof, food. I cut in, a contract, not love. You raised me like a long-term investment. And now the interest stopped coming in. That's not my fault. He said something about blood, about loyalty, about how Dylan couldn't find work. His voice cracked on the word loyalty. I think he realized mid-sentence that it didn't sound like virtue anymore. I'm not your blood, I said. But I was your balance sheet. You just never learned how to live without a line of credit. He fell silent for a second. I could hear the wind against their porch, the one I bought last spring. It sounded hollow. Please, he said finally, smaller than I'd ever heard him. The landlord means it this time. Don't let us get thrown out. I'm not your banker, I said. I'm your daughter, when you remember. That's the difference. Then I hung up. The quiet after that call was different. It wasn't peace. It was gravity, the kind that tells you the fall has already happened and you're just watching the dust settle. A week later, I got a text from a cousin. They moved out. Eviction went through. No punctuation, just fact. I stared at the words for a long time. I expected joy or maybe guilt. What I felt was clarity. They were never homeless. They were just finally home in the truth. That night, I walked past the old house. The porch light was off. A thin sheet of paper fluttered against the front door. The 5-day notice turned weather-worn and pale. Inside, I could still see faint outlines on the walls where family photos had hung. Spaces lighter than the paint around them, like ghosts of affection that had already left. Dylan's car wasn't in the driveway. His stream had died days ago along with the Wi-Fi. Melissa's salon friend told me she was staying with an aunt. Jason picked up odd jobs. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just whispered what I'd written in my ledger weeks ago. When a budget loses its only revenue stream, The Truth Files, Chapter 11. I turned, walked back toward the bookstore, lights glowing at the end of the block, and felt the air sharpen around me. They wanted proof that I could disappear. Now they had it. But what I didn't tell them, what I only realized walking home, was that I hadn't vanished at all. I'd just finally shown up for myself. 2 weeks passed before I saw Melissa again. I was leaving the bookstore when I caught her reflection in the glass, arms folded tight, coat too thin for the weather, eyes rehearsing a softer version of herself. She smiled the way salespeople do before they ask for a refund. "Violet," she said. "You look different." "Balanced," I said. Her lips trembled around the word. She held up an envelope like it was proof of effort. "I've been meaning to talk to you. There's been a misunderstanding about the money." I waited. I wanted to hear what kind of story she'd invoice as truth this time. "Your father had some unexpected expenses," she said. "He used part of the family account to pay off a store card. It was for Dylan's camera equipment, but..." "Equipment he bought with my deposits," I said. "You rerouted funds." Her eyes started away. "It was temporary. We meant to replace it." I handed her a printed bank statement I brought just in case this day came. My initials were stamped beside every withdrawal. Her handwriting marked the notes. "Personal use, repay later." "Fraud needs cows," I said softly. "Integrity needs paper." She flushed. "You didn't have to print that." "I did," I said. "Because explanations disappear." She swallowed. "Your father's embarrassed. Dylan's trying to get back on his feet. We just need a little more time." I shook my head. "You don't need time. You need accountability." She frowned. "Is this really who you are now? Cold, unforgiving?" "No," I said. "This is who I was supposed to be all along." I told her the terms clearly, like an auditor closing a file. Therapy for both parents. Proof of employment for Dylan, 90 consecutive days. Only then would I discuss any repayment. Until then, no contact, no shared accounts, no guilt-driven withdrawals. She looked at me as if she'd never really seen me before. "You sound like a stranger." "I finally do," I said. "To you at least." I turned to leave, but her voice followed, a mix of fear and disbelief. "What are we supposed to do?" "Adjust," I said, the same way I did. Back at the studio, I made tea and pulled out my ledger notebook. The final page was still blank. The bookstore sign below cast a gold light through the window, warm and steady. I opened a fresh page and wrote, "Inner child boundary letter." Then slowly, I wrote the words I've been waiting years to say. "You weren't adopted to be an ATM. You were chosen. Period. I'm choosing you back." I tore the page out and taped it inside the closet above a new sticky note that read, "Balance 0." The air in the room shifted lighter somehow, like oxygen refilling after a long hold. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. For the first time, I understood peace doesn't announce itself. It just sits down quietly and stays. If this hits close to home, you're not alone. Tell me one boundary you wish you'd learned sooner. And if my story helped you find the words for yours, share it with someone who still needs the courage to say no.